Hi, welcome to History 1302, U.S. History since 1877. My name is Alfonso R. Lopez, and I will be your instructor for this class this semester. Now, what we're going to be doing here in this session is to go over the syllabus. So consider this particular class session as the first day of class. Again, this is the first class meeting we're holding in the semester, in which I will present to you the course as a whole in terms of how the course is going to be organized and structured, what our class is going to be like, what is going to be the method, the mode of learning, the method of instruction, what are going to be the requirements in terms, for example, of the required text that you'll need for this course, what are the weekly responsibilities, for example, that you have to follow up in order to prepare for the exams. There will be 3 exams. We're going to get there in due course in a few moments. But how to actually prepare for those exams, this is something that, again, will be explained very thoroughly in this class introduction. This is the introduction to the class. And how the exams are going to be formatted, how the exams are going to be structured as well, and also what kind of assignments there will be in this class. There will be one major course assignment that is due in late April, that is towards the end of the semester. This is something that I will explain as well. And also, there will be a sort of tentative course schedule presented to you at the end of this class introduction in terms of the weekly organization, what kind of themes or topics we're going to be covering week by week, and when, tentatively speaking, when the exams will take place, important due dates in terms of when the course assignment will have to be submitted, when the final exam is going to be, etc. All of that, again, will be provided to you in this first class meeting. So this is the first day of class, okay, by the way. So this is a very important video presentation that will be available on Blackboard throughout the semester for your future reference. So this is like the syllabus explained, so to speak, that is going to guide you through the course in terms of, like I just said, again, how this course is going to be formatted and organized and delivered. Okay, so everything you need to know how to navigate in this course this semester and excel at the end of the semester. Everything will be explained in this class introduction video. All right, so now let's go over the syllabus, which is already posted on Blackboard. Let us go to Blackboard, which, by the way, again, this is the platform that we're going to be using for this class. Again, this is the official platform that ACC is using, again, to pretty much conduct all the online courses. All courses are online now. So let us go to Blackboard. Let me share the screen. So we can begin at this juncture now identifying the main sectors or sections, again, of the Blackboard page for this class, so you'll know what each link is all about. In other words, what do you really need to know about Blackboard, the Blackboard official page for this course, that will enable you to identify the main sections in terms of where the assignments are located, where the instructional materials that will be provided each week, where do you submit, again, the assignments or the exams, and everything. Again, this is a tour, so to speak, for you to really identify all the main elements, again, of the Blackboard page. And we start with the syllabus. So we start with the syllabus because, again, this is the most important document, perhaps of all, in terms of laying out the entire course. How the course is going to be pretty much presented across the semester. So again, if you go to the left-hand side of the Blackboard page, you'll see, of course, there's a blue section. This is the left-hand menu column that has all the major links for the Blackboard page. And the upper part, again, really the first links that are available are the most important ones in terms of, once again, links that take you to the lectures, for example, to the course assignments. All the instructions are there. Of course, how to carry out the assignments and so on and so forth. Again, so we start with the syllabus. Again, this is the first link at the very top. We click on it, and then it takes you to a page, the syllabus page. I actually created a page instead of just uploading the Word doc there for you to open. I actually just created an entire page. So once you click on it, you'll see the entire syllabus. Okay. So we start from the most important information about the class, and then we start from there, pretty much dissecting the syllabus stage by stage. So we start with, again, the name of the course. Once again, this is History 1302, section 013. This is very important, again, that the specific section of this class is 013. Okay. So this is the second part of U.S. history that begins in 1877, since 1877 to contemporary times. Okay. So my name is Alfonso R. Lopez. I will be your instructor for this class this semester. And the fastest and easiest way to reach me is through email. Okay. I'm checking my email several times a day. And so more than likely you'll receive a response within a 24-hour period, within the same day. Or if you send the email quite late, well, it's going to be the following day. Okay. So this is, again, the most efficient, the most effective way of communication. So for any doubt, concern, question, regarding the classes, the grading, etc., again, is email communication. All right. Okay. So another very important component of the course is, again, the class meetings. The class meetings for this course is that it's going to be a kind of hybrid. It's not fully online, by the way. It's fully online, but it's going to be a kind of hybrid in which most of it is going to be asynchronous. We're talking about 2.5 hours, so to speak, again, of information that will be presented to you on Blackboard for you to review, for you to revise, and etc., in your own schedule. But we have also a synchronous component to the course, in that we're going to be meeting on Wednesdays. Again, Wednesdays we're going to be meeting at 11:50, from 11:50 to 12:20. So it's very brief. It's a very brief meeting of 30 minutes. Again, I will explain how this is going to work out, but consider this to be primarily is going to be asynchronous. It's primarily an asynchronous class that is going to simply have a 30-minute class meeting every Wednesday from 11:50 to 12:20, which is going to be very useful for guidance, tutoring, or simply, questions and answers, etc., regarding the lectures that I'm actually presenting to you in the asynchronous, format, within the asynchronous format. I'll explain, how this is going to work out in just a few moments. But again, just keep in mind that there will be a very brief meeting we're going to hold each week on Wednesdays. All right. So let's go now to the required text. The required text is going to be a book by Michael Schaller, again, that is actually a reader. It's actually a collection of documents. So it's not really a book. It's not even a textbook per se, in terms of this is where you read about the past, and the historian is actually telling you a story, etc. But rather, it's a collection of documents. It's a very brief booklet. Okay, very brief. You can see it's thin. It's about 190 pages again, long, but it's really a collection of documents that you're going to use to complete the course assignment that is due at the end of the semester. So why do you need this textbook? Is for the assignment. It's not necessarily to follow up the lectures. This is not going to, be a textbook that you can use to follow up or understand what the lectures are providing, but rather, again, this is for, again, the assignment. It's Reading American Horizons, Primary Sources for U.S. History in a Global Context. It's volume 2. Make sure, again, you get volume 2, the 3rd edition. Again, I put that, again, in bold letters so you'll know. Again, that is the specific, again, text that you need to get for this class. And the ISBN number is really, again, very useful for really getting the exact same text again. The ISBN number, that is to say. It really leads you to this specific book, which, by the way, looks like this. Is like has an orange kind of book cover. This is the instructor's copy, if you will. It's very different, but this is the way it looks again. And once again, this is the only financial investment in textbooks that you'll need for this class. It's about $23 new. If you get it used, you'll probably get it for much less. It should be available at the ACC bookstore already. It should be there. You might want to perhaps call before you actually make a trip there, just to verify that there's availability. But I ordered, again, this textbook at the end of the fall semester we just went through. So I received confirmation about that order, so it should be there. All right. So I'll explain the course assignment once we get to that point. All right. So as I said, this is a kind of is a fully online course that has a hybrid component to it, in that it will be to a great extent an asynchronous course with a very limited synchronous also instruction. Okay, it's a course that will be delivered fully online, and most instruction will take place asynchronously, meaning that the lectures, I will record the lectures every week. Okay, this is the kind of program that I actually use. The one that I'm actually using right now for this class meeting, for this class introduction. This is the way it's going to work. Again, is that I record the lectures as if I'm actually giving the lecture, face to face. Let's say at the college. And I bring, of course, my lecture outlines, and I put them on the projector as well when I'm teaching at the college. So in here, you'll be able to see the outlines as well, just the same way you're looking at the Blackboard page. It's identical. So you'll be able to see the outlines, the maps, or the photographs, or, the key idea that, I'm explaining. You'll be able to see all of that. While at the same time, you'll be able to listen to me and see me again in the computer. And so it's almost like a virtual class, in other words, okay? Very, very similar, almost identical to, assisting a face-to-face class. It's all virtual in this case. And so what I'll do is that I'll record 2 classes per week, post them on Blackboard. Your responsibility is to watch those lectures and take notes as thoroughly as possible, because the 3 exams for this course are going to be based exclusively 100% on the material presented in the lectures. So they're going to be recorded, they're going to be posted. Every week there will be 2 lectures posted on Blackboard, okay? And the way this is going to work is that there's going to be 2 lectures posted on Blackboard, either Monday and Wednesday, or they're going to be posted Tuesdays and Thursdays again. And your responsibility is to, once again, review those lectures, take notes, and then meet every Wednesday at the designated class time. This is the synchronized component of the course, in that we have to meet for 30 minutes or so every Wednesday, 11:50 to 12:20. Okay, so in that half an hour, you have the opportunity to ask questions. If you want to comment on aspects of the lectures, and so on. And also, I'll use this time to pretty much indicate what we're doing. In other words, every week, what we're covering. I might say, okay, look, this week, is very important because I have uploaded, the lectures regarding, let's say, the Great Depression. Okay, that is just an example, of course. We're not going to start there, and then much later, of course, in the semester, but this is just an example. Okay, so we're now covering the Great Depression. It's important that you pay attention to the lectures in terms of what I explain regarding the causes of the Great Depression. Pay attention to the causes. There's a multiplicity of reasons that led to the Great Depression of 1929. Make sure you get, point A, B, C, I all explain. But it's just a summary. In other words, I'm not providing an entire lecture there, but, just kind of giving you an extract and, guiding you that this is important, okay? This is what you should be paying attention to very closely, okay, and so on. So it's almost like orientation, guidance, and it's going to be very helpful, again, those 30 minutes for you, particularly because you'll be able to pretty much clear any doubts and have a very clear understanding where the class is going and what to pay attention to. In other words, what to focus, what's important, and all that. Again, 30 minutes. Okay, every Wednesday from 11:50 to 12:20. It's about 30 minutes. That we're going to be meeting once a week. So it's mainly an asynchronous instruction with a few moments, if you will, for questions and answers and guidance. All right. So I just want to make sure that you understand, again, how this is going to work out. Again, this is pretty much the format, if you will, okay, of the course. And it's important that you take notes as thoroughly as possible, as I mentioned, because all of the exams will be based on the lectures and nothing else. So the only way you can pass the exams and excel is if you are able to answer the questions that will be presented in the exam that deal with the lectures. Again, for example, the Great Depression. Tell me about the causes of the Great Depression. We talked about that. So I'm expecting that, your answers reflect the kind of analysis, the ideas, the factors that I actually elaborated upon. Okay? When I was actually, explaining the origins or the causes of the Great Depression. So again, that's just an example. And that's all you need. You don't need to research any other sources. There's no need for you to be, going online to research articles or encyclopedias or any kind to answer those questions. Again, it's just a lecture. Okay? The lectures are very important. And that's the key to the success of this course. Again, the lectures. I cannot emphasize enough how important the lectures are going to be for learning the material in this class and passing the course successfully. Okay. All right, so the course description. Now, let's talk about what the course is going to be about. In other words, the content, the material that we're going to cover. Okay, so this is the second part of the U.S. History Survey that is required across colleges and universities nationwide. So this is a required component in the core curricula. So this is the second part. This is 1302. That covers U.S. history since 1877 to contemporary times, so to speak. Now, it's important to note that, why 1877 is the sort of breaking point between the first part and the second part. Why 1877? Why not 1800 or any other year? To kind of divide U.S. history. Well, there's many reasons why that is so, which will explain pretty much the focus of our class. What we're going to be focusing across the semester, and that is that 1877 really was a landmark year in U.S. history that really marked the end of an era and the beginning of another one in U.S. history. Okay, in what way? Well, 1877 is the end of Reconstruction, the process by which the United States was rebuilding the country from this rupture that took place in 1860 that produced what is called the Civil War, the rupture between the North and the South. There was a rupture and both sections went to war from 1860 to 1865. And after the South, the Southern Confederacy was defeated, we're going to see a process of Reconstruction, the rebuilding of the United States, particularly the South, was totally shattered from the Civil War. And we're going to see, of course, this process of reunification, the North and the South reunited, but the process of Reconstruction, of course, brought about radical, significant change to the way the United States, U.S. society, American society, even the American economy was structured in the past. For example, one of the most important changes that the process of the Civil War and Reconstruction brought about was, of course, the end of slavery. Okay, that's why we call this the end of an era. Okay, the Civil War and Reconstruction really ended this centuries-old institution that was introduced from Europe, but also existed elsewhere around the world. Slavery existed virtually everywhere. Okay, around the planet, it existed in Africa, it existed in Asia, in the Middle East as well. It existed in places in Europe in different forms, if you will. But this is a very ancient, again, practice. This is a very ancient institution that was introduced to North America in the 16 and 1700s. And it was central to the way of life, to the economic system, particularly of the southern states. The South, in this case, the U.S. South, was totally dependent upon slave labor again for its economic productivity, for its economic well-being. Even the entire finances of the South were pretty much based on slave labor as well. Exports, you name it. Taxes, you name it. And so, by 1860, what we're going to see is that this institution, okay, began to be completely questioned and even opposed by the North, the northern states, which were already adopting a whole different system, a whole different economic system, otherwise known as industrial capitalism. Okay, so it was really, again, two economic systems in the United States that were at odds with one another. Of course, slavery, and in the North, industrial capitalism. And of course, those systems, pretty much clashed. And by 1860, we're going to see a rupture again in the nation. And the Civil War precipitated, by 1861, and those two sections went at war with one another. Uh, so it's one of those systems needed to go. And of course, Northerners believed that slavery, it was time, that the times had come for the United States to really abolish slavery and adopt a whole new system, again, industrial capitalism in this case. And of course, the South was defeated. In 1865, the South surrendered, and with that, we're going to see the liberation of millions of slaves, 4.5 million slaves, of course, and that brought the end of that institution. Okay, so that was the end of an era. Okay, the Civil War and Reconstruction really, again, ended that era of slavery, but it also began a new one. Because after 1877, when finally the South and the North came together and reunited, we're going to see that now the country is moving towards a whole new civilization, a whole new society is emerging. The United States is now really becoming a modern industrial nation after 1877. It's a high-tech industrial civilization is on the rise by 1877. This is what historians call, this is the beginning of modernity for the United States. The United States was modernizing, it was industrializing all over the country. Okay, we're going to see the rapid spread of factories, industrial plants, businesses of various kinds and enterprises, along with a new system of labor called wage labor. People are now earning their living through the payment of wages. We're going to see the steady rise of a middle class as well. And also, we're going to see new technologies, the arrival of modern technology, modern science and technology, the invention of new tools that are going to radically alter the way people live in the United States, like electricity, for example, the telephone, the telegraph, the light bulb, pharmaceutical products, again, chemistry, chemicals, and so on. Modern medicine, as well. Okay, modern psychology and the like. Again, so the United States was really becoming a whole new nation. It was going through a whole makeover, so to speak, because it was now becoming what today we call simply a modern society. The way we live today, with all our comforts and all our technologies that we're so accustomed to, we take so for granted today. Well, most of those tools and technologies that we enjoy today were born, not all of them, but a great many were born back in the late 19th century after 1877. So that's why this is the beginning of a new era, 1877. The end of an old age. Okay, the age of the past in which most people were farmers in the United States, and we got slavery in the South. And now, after 1877, when slavery comes to an end, when millions of peoples were liberated, we're going to see now, industrialization taking place. Farmers are moving to the cities because those were where the factories were located and such, and search for jobs. They're earning wages now. That's how they earn their living. And, we're going to see the rise, of course, of a middle class. And along with that, we're going to see, of course, new technologies that are changing the way people live and work as well. Again, you got modern transportation systems, the rapid development of the railroad across the United States, for example, more effective, more efficient, for example, ships that are going to be moving cargo all around the world. So we're going to see the acceleration of international trade as well. Okay, and with electricity, for example, we're going to see now factories and businesses having artificial lighting that is going to allow for people to work, extra, hours, maybe night shift and so on. Nightlife, again, is beginning to take place around this time. So again, what we're going to be covering, therefore, in this class is U.S. history from 1877 all the way to contemporary times, from, again, the perspective of of modernity. In other words, we're now looking at the modern era in the United States. When the United States modernized, how it accomplished modernization, what were some of the problems that this new modern nation called the United States was facing as it was transitioning towards modernization. And looking, of course, at the rise of the United States in the 20th century to the international stage as well. We're going to look at that as well. Okay, so this is going to be like a kind of like an underlying theme across the semester, this idea of modernity. In other words, we're going to look at that, how, many people actually change or adapted to this new modern way of life. For example, women. Modern women are different from traditional women. Again, this is just an example in terms of how when women began to migrate to the cities, they left behind many of the traditions, that they were so accustomed to, back, let's say, back at the farm or in this little town that they used to live in. They had to dress in a specific way, comb their hair in a specific way, the way their manners, etc., relationships were all very traditional. But in the city, everything changed. Okay? Women began to, pretty much, dress according to their own, ideas, experiment with different styles and fashions, etc. They started working in different areas of the economy and so on. Again, so this is just one example of how different groups of people in U.S. history began to adapt to a whole new way of life. We call modern, in other words. Is that just one example? Again, there's a multiplicity of examples we're going to be looking at in this course. All right. So there's another thing I want to just make sure you understand here in terms of the way that I'm going to be presenting the information, the lectures, that is to say, the way I teach history. Okay. And in this case, the way I teach history, and by the way, pretty much, any history course I teach, whether it's U.S. history or it's Texas history or Mexican history or Latin American history, again, doesn't matter. That the way I teach it is that I teach history from what is called a global perspective. What that means is that I try to connect events happening here in this region, let's say the United States, with events happening all over the globe. Okay? It doesn't mean that we're going to be just talking about what's going on around the world and nothing else. No, it's really, again, that we're going to be looking at U.S. history primarily. This is what we're going to be studying. But also understanding that events that happen here at home were, in many cases, influenced by ideas coming from other places of the world. Okay? That the United States was not really developing historically in isolation from the rest of the world. Okay? No country is totally cut off and isolated from the rest of the world. Countries are interconnected. They're influenced by their neighbors, for example. The countries are not bubbles unto their own, selves, in which there's no influence or no interaction with, other peoples or other nations or other civilizations, but rather there's constant interaction taking place between human societies all over the world, and they influence one another. People borrow, they share ideas, even unconsciously. We kind of, when we're confronted with, new ideas coming from, let's say, Europe, or coming from Asia, or coming from Mexico, etc., we borrow and adopt, again, some of those ideas and make them our own. And that's exactly what the global perspective is that how the United States fits in the larger picture at any given period of time in ways that enable us to understand the connections between the U.S. and the rest of the world. Okay? For example, when we look at science, we're going to be looking at modern science and modern technology. many of the scientific ideas that influenced the United States, let's say in the late 19th century, came from Europe. Like the ideas of evolution, the theory of evolution, for example, that was formulated by Charles Darwin, the British biologist, and had tremendous impact again in the way Americans began to really ponder about creation, how the world came into being, life in this planet, for example, what kind of life forms have existed in this planet, and what does it mean, again, to be here, as human beings, that we're evolving, for example. Oh, so we're supposed to be evolving and making ourselves better, improving ourselves, because that's evolution. And so that influenced, of course, the way people look at economics, that we need to progress economically, we need to progress as a society, and so on. Again, so that's just one example, again, of how ideas coming from Europe, of course, influence events here at home. But also the global perspective indicates that we also have to take into account the cultures or the civilizations of the planet that the United States was interacting with. Okay, for example, when Americans began to move into Mexico in the early 20th century for investment, there were a lot of merchants, moving into Mexico to invest there, create enterprises, etc. They came into contact with indigenous cultures of Mexico, okay? That were radically different from the cultures of the United States. And of course, as Americans are interacting now with other peoples, in this case, indigenous peoples of Mexico, there's going to be, of course, changes taking place, among the indigenous peoples, because the indigenous peoples were now confronted with something new, and that is, of course, industries and factories, for example, consumerism. The idea that we can actually just buy things and make ourselves happy. Okay, this is something that Americans introduced among the indigenous peoples of Mexico. So we have to understand indigenous cultures, how indigenous cultures were like, and to enable us to understand why they either rejected or adopted some of the ideas that Americans brought, again, to Mexico. Were, Native Americans transformed into consumers, for example? Was that the reality? And why is it that they rejected consumerism, for example? So it is important to look at indigenous cultures in Mexico very briefly. This is something, again, that the global perspective indicates is that, yes, we're studying American history, but we have to also look at other cultures, what other cultures were like as the United States is interacting with them. In other words, for example, the Vietnam War of the 1960s. It's important to have a brief, very general, if you will, understanding of Vietnamese history and culture. What was Vietnam like? What was Vietnamese culture like by the time that Americans get there? Of course, so it will enable us to understand the Vietnamese people, in other words, and understanding the conflict as a whole. So you'll be learning a lot about world civilizations in this class. Okay. It's going to be primarily a U.S. history course, but you'll learn a lot about world civilizations. The civilizations of China or Vietnam or indigenous peoples of Mexico or the Native Americans of North America. Again, we're going to get into that as well. Okay? So that's what I mean about the global perspective. All right, so besides the global perspective, I also want to point out that I do also integrate in my lectures perspectives that come from other fields outside of history. Okay, so this is, again, something that you'll notice right away as we begin the semester. You'll be watching the recorded video lectures. You'll notice that when I teach history, I really try to get into people's mindset as much as possible. Not just know what they did, okay? Not just say, oh, this is what people did in this year, and you just have to learn the dates, the names of the people, or the laws they wrote, and, that's pretty much history. That's important, but for me, history is really understanding why people did what they did, okay? understanding their psychological makeup, understanding their behavior. In other words, for me, it's very important to understand why things happen, not just what happened, but also why things happen in history, why events arise in history, what moves people, what motivates people to do what they did in the past. So in order to do that, I have to step outside of the field of history and borrow elements from other disciplines, like, for example, psychology. Okay? So there's going to be a lot of psychoanalysis in this class, in that, look, when we're studying history, I like to get into people's mindset. Understanding, for example, psychology tells us that in order to understand human beings, you have to understand their past, their background, their upbringing, their formative years, like their childhood, how people were brought up, what kind of experiences they had, what kind of religion was instilled upon them. Did they experience traumas and so on? Because all of that combined really shapes the way an individual sees the world, how an individual behaves once the individual reaches adulthood. Okay, and so that's exactly what I like to do. Not just analyzing specific individuals, which I will, leaders, for example. Looking at Europe, for example, the rise of Hitler. Okay, look, of course he did all these horrific things, but what really drove that individual to behave the way he did, and why is it that millions of Germans follow him? In other words, what was really going on in Germany, how people were really brought up, what kind of ideas were important to them, and so on. So all of that, I get into that, of course. But it's not just, again, individuals. I like to analyze entire societies, for example, like American society, for example. Looking at the 1900s, 1910s, for example, 1920s, we see the rise of consumerism in the United States, okay, consumer culture. So I get also into the mindset of Americans living during this time. Why is it that consumption became so central to people's lives? What made people tick, in other words, in the United States, that they consider consumption really the goal, the end goal of human existence. The source of human happiness, and so on. So we go into an analysis there, a psychoanalysis, and so on. So you'll see that. I borrow elements from anthropology, from psychology, from sociology, from many fields, in order to really understand people from within, from the inside out, in other words, as fully as possible. Okay? So I just wanted to clear that, because I think it's important that it's not just going to be a traditional history in terms of looking at just politics and economics, but we're also going to be looking also at other aspects of history, such as religion, culture. We're going to be looking also at society, how society was like, what kind of social groupings and so on existed at any given time, and so on. Pretty much, again, a social, cultural history as well, and that takes into account, again, the world of ideas, the world of meanings, perceptions, everything that is going on inside of our minds, in other words, trying to really go back in time and trying to put ourselves in the shoes of those people living, again, in the past. Okay? All right, so that's in terms, again, of the course description and the kind of style or approach that I employ to teaching history. Now, the mode of learning, as I mentioned, is that how you're going to be learning the material in this class is that I will be recording every week the lectures, and I will be posting 2 lectures per week. I mentioned Monday and Wednesday, or Tuesday and Thursdays. There's always going to be 2 lectures, perhaps with the only exception of this week, because in this week, this is the first lecture. The class introduction is the very first lecture that will be posted today for you to review. Today is Tuesday, so on Thursday I will post now the very first historical lecture, and so that will be the second class. So consider this the first class meeting. and Thursday the second class meeting. But on Thursday we actually start now, looking at the very first historical topic of the semester. Okay. So again, this is the method of learning. I'm going to be recording them and posting them on Blackboard, and we're going to be meeting on Wednesdays from 11:50 to 12:20 for any questions, comments, etc. Again, guidance and so on. Okay, so this is the method of instruction, and there's going to be a section on Blackboard again here. It's called Instructional Materials. When you click on there, you're going to see here a folder. I'm going to actually put this folder on top here. It's called Recorded Video Lectures. So it is in this particular folder where I'll be posting all of the recorded video lectures. You click on it, and there's going to be 9 folders. Each folder is for each of the topics that we're going to cover, again, in the semester, each of the topics, again. And there will be 3 videos for each folder. Every folder is going to have 3 classes, in other words, 3 individual classes that just talk about that. That's all I lecture about. So if I'm lecturing, let's say, on the Great Depression or World War I, there will be 3 classes on that topic posted there for you to review. Okay. Each week, again, I'm going to be posting 2. Every week I will be posting 2 per week. Okay, so going back to the syllabus. All right, so the lectures, as I just witnessed there, are not going to be given randomly, but rather they're already organized around topics. In other words, I don't just record the lectures based on, random ideas or random topics. What I've done is that I really just structured this class around themes or topics. It's thematic. There's specific themes we're going to be covering, in other words, across the semester. My lectures don't come from a single source. It comes from a multiplicity of different sources. Books I've read, articles and so on, research papers I've done and so on. And so I take all this information that I have accumulated over the years, and what I've done is that I have created 9 topics that cover, U.S. history since 1877 that will provide, in my opinion, again, a very good overview and picture of the United States, what the United States was going through, the most important events that molded and shaped American culture and society since 1877. Okay, and they're listed there. Okay, they're listed here. This is like the table of contents. That tells you what are those themes. Those are 9. Okay, they're written there. And they're organized, again, in blocks, in that I have divided the semester into 3 blocks, 3 parts, and each part has 3 topics. And those 3 parts are historical periods. There are 3 historical periods we're going to cover. The first one is the late 19th century, from 1877 to 1900. This is when the United States was modernizing, I said. It was becoming a modern industrial nation. And we look at 3 topics that deal with that. The birth of this high-tech industrial civilization in the U.S. Okay, I really present those 23 years or so worth of U.S. history into 3 topics that deal just with that, and each topic has 3 videos. Each topic is going to have 3 sessions or 3 videos that will be posted again in that section I just showed you. And you'll be notified as soon as I record and upload a lecture. I'll send you an email announcement like, okay, so session 1 of the idea of progress, the first topic is already there for you to review. Okay, let's say Thursday, and then next week, let's say Monday, make it a Monday and Wednesday, for example. I'll tell you, look, session 2 of the idea of progress is already uploaded on Blackboard again. And so every time I upload a video lecture, you'll be notified. It's almost like I'm telling you the class is there, and your responsibility is, again, to pretty much watch this material in your own time. So once we cover 3 topics, then we have an exam. Okay. It takes about 5 weeks to cover 3 topics, and then we have an exam. The first exam, again, is going to be based on those 3 topics. What I actually do is I select one topic, for you to actually answer questions on. Okay, so I select one topic and I say, okay, look, I want you to answer, a series of questions, 3 or 4 questions on this topic for 70 points, and then I select a few key terms from another topic, and you have to identify and describe as fully as possible. Again, that's what the exam is going to be like. Again, so you'll be given a few days to complete that exam. You have to actually type the answers as fully as possible from the information you got from the lectures, and only the lectures. And so you type them, you answer the questions, all the questions of one topic and the key terms from another, and you save it in a single file, and then you upload it on Blackboard. That's the exam, again, so to speak. And then we proceed with the second block, the second historical period, the crisis of modernity from 1890 to 1939. And I have 3 topics that deal with the U.S. going through a crisis. It was a modern society in crisis. We cover 3 topics, and then we have the second exam. Okay? Very similar, if not identical, in terms of the format, of the first block. I select one topic, and I ask you questions about that for you to actually answer very thoroughly, and then key terms from another topic as well. And you upload it on Blackboard. That's the second exam. And the same with the third block, the U.S. in the Age of Globalization, from 1939 to the present. Okay? There will be 3 topics that deal with the U.S. in the Age of Globalization. And likewise, we have the final exam on May. Again, the first week or so, I believe. Again, it's around that time when we have the final exam. And likewise, the final exam is only going to cover the last 3 topics: World War II, the Cold War, and the Civil Rights Movement. Identical. Okay? So there will be 3 main exams. Each exam is going to cover a block of topics. Again, and all of the exams will be based on the lectures and nothing else. Each exam is going to be worth 25% each of the final grade. And as I mentioned, the format is that it has part 1 and part 2. Part 1 requires students to answer all the questions of one historical topic for 70 or 80 points. And part 2 requires students to identify and fully describe a couple of key terms from another topic for 20 points or 30, depending. So everything has to be typed. You'll be given several days to complete that. So I'm expecting really that you spend some time answering those questions and key terms, and not just, providing a very general description again of history in that answer. So since you have more time to answer the exam, because you'll be given a few days, I'm expecting that you write as much as possible and go the extra mile in terms of this is a very useful strategy, a very useful tip. Again, I give students is that, look, if you really want to excel in the exams, pretend that you're answering the questions you're writing to an audience that does not know anything about history. Okay, so you're answering the questions on World War I, and I tell you, look, tell me about the origins of the First World War. There's a multiplicity of different factors we talked about. So that's the first question. So what I'm actually expecting is that, okay, so he really outlined like 5 different reasons why World War I broke out. So you go back to your notes, you'll be able to pretty much explain in your own words, what led to the First World War. And not just list, those factors. you have to provide explanations, okay, in-depth, pretty much explanation, in as many details as possible, because remember, you're writing to somebody that does not know anything about history. So the more you explain, the more they'll understand. Okay? So if you skip a lot of data and details, you're in a rush and just trying to finish, and you're not going to earn full points. What you want is to have, to earn as many points as possible, full credit. So the only way I can measure if you have been watching the lectures, if you have understood the material, the analysis I provided, is it that if you can explain that in your own words. So if you skip, a chunk of that, I'm not gonna actually be able to know what you're talking about. What if you learn, for example, have you actually learned? Have you seen the videos? It doesn't reflect that. So again, try to write as much as possible. This is extremely important. Okay. And again, just concentrate on the lectures when it comes to the exams, because if you use any outside sources when you're answering those questions or key terms, if I see that you obtain information from websites or encyclopedias and you cite it all, your work will be disqualified. Okay, it will be, because the exam is based on the material that I'm actually providing to you. Again, I spent a lot of time actually elaborating again on those topics and trying to explain. Okay, for example, what led to the Great Economic Depression. Let's say just take that again as an example. The multiplicity of causes for the Great Depression. I give a very in-depth, really understanding and analysis of that. And then how the U.S. responded to the Great Depression. There's also a lot of insights there. And so I need to know if you're able to understand this material, in other words. So the only way I can measure that is if you're able to, in your own words, explain that to me, in other words, okay? So if you start using, other sources, it's not going to be valid, okay? It's going to invalidate your work, okay? Now, there will be extra credit assignments. There's plenty of room for improving your grades. You're not stuck with, whatever grade you're getting, because I have actually provided 3 extra credit assignments, okay, on Blackboard. Okay, under course assignments, there's going to be a folder there that says extra credit assignments. There are 3, and this is optional. This is not mandatory. Those are available for all students, again, that really want to simply add up to 10 points to each exam. That's the whole letter grade. So let's say you made a 75 in the first exam. You're not stuck with that, because look, you can actually bump it up to an 85. Okay? So there's always room for betterment and improvement, if you're willing to do the work. In this case, so you do 3 extra credit assignments and you pretty much increase your exams grade a whole letter grade each, if the work is done correctly, of course. So again, this is very, very important, because I want you to know that in this class, I'm willing to work with you, but you have to do the work. In other words, I'm not here to prevent you from actually getting a good grade, or that, that I need to see just a few A's and nothing else. No. I want you to learn about history. I'm here to teach you about U.S. history. The success for me is based on how much you've learned, how much you've grown intellectually, in other words, okay, that you're able to think critically, upon issues that enable you to understand the world that we live in, today. For me, that is, again, the aim of history, of the professor. So again, that is central for me. So in terms of passing in your grade, for me is really how much the student demonstrates a willingness, a commitment, again, to learn and improve, in other words. So if I see that you're really striving, that you have placed an enormous effort, in bettering your grades and learning, etc., again, that's for me what what should count, not what grade you got in the first exam, and then pretty much freeze your grade there, just because that's not the way. That's not my philosophy of teaching. Okay, so again, last but not least, there's going to be one course assignment I mentioned that is due at the end of the semester, the last week of April. Okay, we're going to see on Monday, April 26th. Again, this is the due date for this course assignment that is due late April. 25% of your final grade is based on this assignment, which is a study questions report. So this study questions report is based on, again, this textbook. This is really a booklet, by the way. It's very thin. You can see I selected 10 documents from this booklet for you to read. They're very short, maybe a page or two, perhaps 3 pages each. A quick read, like a letter. You might be reading an excerpt of a letter, for example, a memoir, or etc. And answer some questions on each document. How to carry out. Well, all the instructions are here on the syllabus. So the syllabus really provides all the instructions, the format, the guidance, the guidelines, all of that. Again, it tells you which document you have to read, where is the page number, and so on. What is the title of the document? What are the questions that you need to answer for each document? So for each document, I expect that the answers will be about a page each. Not each question, but for each document that you read, that when you answer the questions, that's going to be about a page, double space. Then you move to the second document, you read it, you look at the questions, you answer them, and all the answers for that document will be about a page, and so on. So you'll end up with a 10-page, report, double space, that will have to be submitted, at the end of the semester, late April, by the way, for 25 points, 25%. 25% of your final grade is just this study questions report. So the grading distribution looks like this. Is 4 main grades, first, second, and final exam, 25% each, and the study questions report, 25%. A total of 100 points, with the possibility of improvement with the extra credit assignments. You can actually add more points to the exams if you wish to do so. And also, last but not least, please be advised that I also take something else into account, and that is effort and commitment. In other words, if I see that you were present again, for example, on Wednesdays, that you attend those brief class meetings, for example, if I see that you're committed to improve your grades, progress across the semester. In what way? Well, that I see that at the end of the semester, I see that your grades went from, let's say, from an 80 to an 85 to a 90, or from a 73 to an 84 to a 91. So if I see progression in that fashion, and I see that you turned in 1 or 2 extra credit assignments, and I see that effort, okay, so let us just say that for some reason you ended up at the very end with an 88.75 grade average. That is the final grade average after everything is calculated. And I see that you were really improving across the semester. You ended up in the final exam with an A, let's say a 90, 91, 94, etc. So what I do is that I take that into account, that effort, and I factor it in the equation, so to speak, and I'll give you that extra point and a half that you needed for the A. So again, I need to see progression, and to give you that extra point or two, perhaps point and a half. That doesn't mean that it's automatic, that just because you got an 88.5, it's automatic you're going to get the A, because I have to see effort. That you turn in extra credit assignments, or you were really trying, you were progressing, improving across the semester, and so on. So it's not automatic. Again, once again, you have to see progress. In other words, an effort. Okay, that's another factor. Okay, so the last portion of the syllabus is just, again, important calendar dates, the calendar organization week by week, what we're going to be covering every week, what topic, and so on, and when we're going to have the first exam. Roughly, the first exam will have to be submitted February the 22nd, thereabouts. It's subject to change. It's subject to change because it all depends, how fast or slow we're moving. Okay, so you'll be notified, if we're going to be holding the exam. And again, this is something that you work in your own schedule at home. You type those questions and so on, but you'll get the instructions a week in advance. We're going to have now an exam. Look, here are the instructions. Answer the questions on this topic and the key terms from this other topic, and you have to upload them on this specific due date. So you'll be given the entire instructions again way in advance. Then we have, of course, the second block, of topics. 3 topics are covered in about 5 weeks, and then we have the second exam on Monday, April the 5th, thereabouts, and also. And the third block, it tells you the topics we're covering week by week, when the study questions report is due, April 26th, when is the last meeting, Wednesday, May the 5th, for example, and when the exam will have to be uploaded on Blackboard, May the 12th. You'll have to upload the final exam by May the 12th. Okay, so this is in a nutshell, again, how the class is going to be structured and organized and delivered. Okay, so the remaining pages of the syllabus is really policies and regulations. If you need assistance for Blackboard tech support, it tells you where to go. There's all the web pages, the phone numbers, for example, if you need accommodations or the withdrawal dates and so on. All of that is in the last pages of the syllabus. Is that technical part of the policies and regulations, okay, for your information. The class introduction, this video is going to be posted here in this link, just below syllabus. It says class introduction. That's where this class meeting is going to be posted and available for the entire semester. The instructional materials, as I indicated, this is where the instruction, again, the materials of instruction, like the recorded video lectures and the outline. So for every topic is going to have an outline that is going to also provide the questions that you need to study for the exam. At the end of the outline, at the very bottom of that document where the outline, you're going to find those questions. Or if that topic has key terms, it's going to tell you the key terms. Okay, they're already there. They're already available, for you to review already. Again, it's only the recorded video lectures that will be posted week by week. Okay, the course assignments has, of course, the assignments, again, like the study questions report. The guidelines are here, as well as in the syllabus. Okay, so the syllabus has the guidelines for the study questions report, again, that is based on this booklet, but also here, this document, again, also has it, and the extra credit assignments. Again, you click on there and you're going to find 3 folders, 3 extra credit assignments that has the instruction and also whether the article or a video that you actually need to read or watch in order to carry out that assignment. And there's a section here that says submit work, and all works are going to be submitted here in this section: the study questions report, the extra credit assignments, and the exams. I'm going to create upload tabs there. It says first exam, second exam, and final exam. So all works are going to be uploaded here in this section, and it's called submit work. Okay. I hope This presentation has helped you identify the main components, the main sectors of the Blackboard page for this course, where to go, where to actually find the lectures or turn in the works, where are the assignments, and so on. If you have any questions, regarding this particular introduction or any component of the syllabus that needs clarification for you, please let me know. Please send me an email and I will reply immediately again to clarify your question again. Again, anything related to how we're going to be proceeding week by week, it's important that you have a very clear idea of how we're going to be proceeding again week by week. Okay, so once again, this is History 1302, Section 013, U.S. History since 1877. My name is Alfonso R. Lopez. I'll be your instructor this semester, and I hope, again, that you're able to not only stay in the course, but finish it successfully and excel in this course. I'll do everything I can to provide insight and guidance and food for thought, plenty of food for thought for you to understand much, much better, again, the history of the United States since 1877 to the present. Okay, that's all I have for you, and I'll see you then on Wednesday, 11:50 for our first class meeting. Okay, that's all I have for you, and I'll see you then tomorrow, Wednesday. Thank you.